Hi, everybody. I'm Marcy Markusa, and welcome to our podcast. This episode is going to explore something that we've long said about ourselves here in our province, friendly Manitoba. Well, when it comes to immigration in 2025, and if you're a newcomer coming to this province, how friendly are we? This is Manitoba. We're going to explore that. And why? Because we're beginning a series of conversations here at CBC. We've been having a series of conversations, rather, about what some have identified as shifting attitudes toward immigrants in Canada. And some of those shifting attitudes are affecting people here in Manitoba as well. So as mentioned, I'm Marcy Markusa, and let's get started by hearing some people on TikTok, actually, who have posted about immigration over the last year.
Canada's been importing garbage immigrants for the past couple of years, and I don't know if you guys agree with me. And you see many people, they don't even speak the language of the country anymore.
Too many immigrants.
Our women don't feel safe going out by themselves at night anymore. This is due primarily to our broken immigration system.
They are getting a free ride.
There's been a huge explosion in immigration, which is putting huge stresses on our housing sector, our medical sector, education eventually, and many other social services in Canada. The federal government has to stop this immediately. Canada is breaking at the knees.
Now, those voices from TikTok videos are some of the first that pop up when you do a simple search of Canada immigrants on the social media platform. And those sentiments toward newcomers aren't just online. Today, to begin our series, Tasneem Vali is our guest. She's a Muslim Winnipegger. She immigrated to Canada over 20 years ago. She says she's noticed a change in how people feel about newcomers here in our city. What was it like for you to listen to those voices and those opinions?
So it's nothing new that we haven't heard before. And again, attitudes shift. I was in North America. I was in America as a student. And then after 9/11 happened, I was in Chicago and I saw the attitudes shifting. And when I immigrated to Canada 20 years down the line, now I'm seeing attitude shifts again. Canada was very, very welcoming of immigrants, right? And I feel it still is. We are frontline when we got the Syrian refugees in 2015, frontline for the Ukrainian refugees. Manitoba actually just announced that a Palestinian family has come here for medical treatment. I'm not disheartened by what I heard, but it's nothing new that I have not heard. And I think a lot of it has to do with just listening to propaganda, sometimes in media that is not responsible, and also not knowing somebody, an immigrant, for example, to see people when people leave the security of their homes, something that they've known their entire lives, they're coming to weather that is harsh. Like my car didn't start today, right?
Yep.
Nobody out of choice will come and live in minus 40-degree weather. So when people come here, they're coming for the same thing. They're coming for security in economic well-being. They're coming for a better life for their children. As you can see, the world is in turmoil. Everywhere that you look, there's either civil war or there is hunger or there is climate destruction happening. So people are just trying to be safe.
I want to walk through the trajectory of some of your experiences. You said it's nothing new, but there have been sort of shifts over the years. When you look at your own journey in Canada, were there points where you felt more welcome and less welcome and more welcome again?
So when I first immigrated to Canada, very welcome. There was no issues at all. We moved to Toronto. Nobody even turned ahead and said, you're not from here. Nobody asked the question, where are you from?
And this is 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. Nobody cared. I have an advantage where English is my first language. So that's one thing, right? A couple of years down the line, I would get, you speak English really well. Where did you learn English? Right? Because seeing me, they would assume that I don't know English or I don't speak English. When there was, election was happening, we had the Harper government, and there was a whole rhetoric about the snitch line and the niqab debate. That's when I saw something that I have never seen in Canada, where people would question your loyalty. People would question why you're here if you can't assimilate.
So you saw that start to creep in out of the Quebec laws. Here in Manitoba, you would face those sentiments as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
sometimes.
I was asking about in the past when things have sort of changed or you've noticed shifts in your own experience of being, for lack of this is too broad of a term, but for feeling welcomed.
Yeah.
If now sort of you're saying you're not surprised and you're hearing sentiments again, how do you frame that for yourself? Why is it happening now?
I believe there's two things. One is a cultural misunderstandings. For example, in Ontario, there was that whole food bank scandal where students were going to the food bank for free food, and the food bank realized that this is not something they didn't qualify for the food bank. If you think about Marcy, in India, where most of those students were from, there is this tradition of langar, where the temple provides food every single day, one meal, and anybody, no questions asked, can go and eat. And that tradition was here too. We've seen it during COVID, how generous communities are. So if a student has gone to a food bank and they're receiving food, in their mind, it is no questions asked, you can come here for food, right? Because they're coming from that cultural background and that cultural understanding. When you come here and the food bank has different rules and you have not made it clear to somebody, then there is going to be a misunderstanding. So instead of that, I think what needs to happen is clarity on how Canadian institutions or systems work. The other thing is there was an influx of immigration where traditionally in the past, you have an immigrant, you get a family that kind of mentors you. Now what is happening is people are coming in and we don't have enough mentors or we don't have enough people stepping up to kind of mentor a family. It takes you at least a year to settle down, to learn the culture, to go through the cycle. I believe that's the other reason.
How widespread do you think that the negative sentiments are? You started by saying you still feel that Manitoba, you still feel is welcoming, but there's a qualification. So how widespread are you hearing the negative comments now in your daily life here in Winnipeg?
It's interesting. I do hear the negative comments sometimes from people who've been here for 50 years or so, like immigrated, because they also see a cultural shift, right? And it's quite interesting that way. It's not prevalent, but it's still there, especially as a Muslim and a person of color, right? Because I'm so visible. As you see, that was a whole thing about, the PC leadership campaign. Abhi was called out. Oh, he's a blue bomber. Like he's more Winnipeg than anybody, right? So why would that be called out? That I think leadership and the media have a huge role to play where Manitoba stays friendly Manitoba.
What advice would you give to a newcomer who just arrived in our city, coming into the climate we're talking about?
Learn about the Canadian culture. If you don't understand something, ask the question. Don't assume it's the same as where you're coming from. And I think that onus on education is also on people who are coming new to the country. And then get yourself out in the community. I was a Girl Guide leader. I loved it. I learned so much being a Girl Guide in Canada as opposed to being a Girl Guide in Dubai and in India. Very different things. So that is my thing. Just, go out, get to know your neighbors, get involved in your kids' schools, get involved in the community, volunteer. I want to say that is a very Manitoban thing to do, and that is the best way to get to know people and to get to know Canada.
Just last, you sort of alluded to this, and you said it really well around sort of it behooves all of us to get back to being real friendly Manitoba. But what do you think can be done to get back to that place where all newcomers will feel welcome and safe here? You've talked about education, but I mean, I'm just curious what is top of mind for you there?
I think when a newcomer comes, maybe, I don't know if this is a government thing or a grassroots, a faith-based institution things or whatever, right? When somebody comes, they go to either the church or the temple or the mosque, or right? So I think these institutions need maybe the government to help them with, pair a family with a newcomer. And then, maybe mentor them 6 months. It's not, you're not financially liable for them, but at least mentor them, help them out, get to know them, what their challenges are, help them navigate the school system, things like that.
Tasneem Vali, a Winnipegger who's noticed, as you heard, an increase in anti-immigration sentiments in the city. Well, let's switch gears now. And actually, we're going to be talking on the podcast next about a couple of things that are lighting up the sky. Now, one of them is lights, and it's a big installation that's going to be on for most of the winter, and it's just starting in Winnipeg in the Exchange District. But the other is not so controllable, and it's not created by artists. We're talking about something that's very rare in the nighttime sky. Every planet is about to be visible at once. So the astronomical event called the Planetary Parade has started, and it's going to continue over 4 weeks. Danielle Pahud is director of the Lockhart Planetarium at the University of Manitoba. And here's our conversation about what this is. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how rare is it for, as I mentioned, all planets to be visible at once?
It's fairly rare to have all of the planets visible at once. To have 5 or 6 of them happens every few years, but in late February, we'll have all 7 of the other planets visible in the night sky at the same time. And that sort of thing happens once every 100 years or so.
Where in the sky will the planets actually be? Like, what should people understand about this?
Yeah, so they'll actually be sort of distributed throughout the sky. So right now, if we look low to the west, Venus is by far the brightest thing in the night sky. And so Saturn and Neptune are both sort of in that region, low in the southwest. Jupiter and Uranus right now, if you go out right after sunset, are directly above Orion, so quite high up in the sky to the south. And then Mars is rising in the east. It's a fairly bright red star. And so the stars are sort of scattered across this arc that we call the ecliptic, which is the way that we see from Earth, the plane that all of the planets orbit in.
What about Mercury?
Mercury, being the innermost planet, always stays very close to the sun. And it also has the shortest period. And so right now it's so close to the sun that we would only be able to see it during the day if the sun didn't outshine it. But later in February, it will get to its furthest point away from the sun from our perspective. And so we'll be able to see Mercury just after sunset at the end of February.
Danielle, can you see all of this with the naked eye?
You can see most planets with a naked eye. So Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars are very easily visible with a naked eye. Uranus and Neptune, you would need some pretty hefty binoculars or a telescope.
And how about what time to view them? You were saying sundown for some of them. Is that the best time?
The best time is right after sunset right now. So because Venus is low in the west, it will be up for an hour or two after the sunsets, but not after that. So this is a rare occasion where the best time for astronomy is between 6 and 8:30. So fairly early.
No doubt. Usually we're having to stay up or do the overnight or talk to shift workers who are up early. Yeah.
The other nice... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
I was going to say the other nice thing about this is that unlike a meteor shower or an eclipse, we actually have weeks to enjoy it. So if it's cloudy tonight, we have another chance next week. So we've got some time before we miss out.
Yeah, it's kind of going back and forth. We will have a few clouds tonight. I'm just looking at this. So, and then if we get colder again, of course, we get those clear nights. Why is it called a planetary parade instead of planetary alignment?
So the alignment tends to make people think that all of the planets are in a very straight line, so that if you look at one place in the sky, you'll see all of the planets sort of lined up. But a parade sort of has them more scattered, so you have to look over a larger region of sky to have them look. So the planets aren't so much lined up as they are sort of all within the same pie wedge of their orbits right now.
If someone doesn't have a telescope of their own, how can they view all of the planets?
So the university has some telescopes, and we have open houses on the last Wednesday of every month. So on January 29th, I'll be giving an open house at the planetarium, where even if it's cloudy, I'll be showing people where to look. And if it's clear, we'll be opening up the telescope at the university, and we'll allow people to look through it to see if they can see the planets.
What kind of reactions do you get when people join your open houses and have a look?
I tend to get 2 reactions. Sorry about that. People mostly feel a lot of wonder and awe, which is really fun for me. I still feel that way. It's quite something to look through a telescope and see the planets with your own eyes. And then some people are disappointed that telescope images don't look like Hubble images. But there's only so much we can do with a ground-based telescope. But it's pretty special to look directly at a planet.
I bet. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Really appreciate it. And good luck with your open house next week.
Thank you very much.
So cool, right? Who even knew that you could go? I didn't, to the U of M and look through their big giant telescope. Danielle Pahud, though, is, as you heard, the person that runs those open houses, so maybe you'll check it out this winter. She's director of the Lockhart Planetarium over at the University of Manitoba. Well, as I alluded to earlier in the podcast, we have something else to talk about that is also lighting up the night sky, and that is the third annual Lights On in the Exchange District. The festival has now begun. It, like the Planetary Parade, also is ongoing over the number of weeks. So you have a lot of time to check this out. This event features 25 light-based works of art that you can walk through and check out if you're in the Exchange District. And David Pensato knows all about it. He's the executive director of Winnipeg's Exchange District BIZ. Well, we're glad you're here too.
So am I.
The early bird gets the interview, and this one is about Lights On in the Exchange. So if you haven't been to this before, this is the third annual event in the Exchange District. It started this week. It features over 25 light-based works of art that you can check out as you're basically walking through the streets of the Exchange. And so David's here to talk, obviously, about this year's installation. Is everything up yet, or are you still kind of adding as we go?
Yeah, we're kind of adding as we go. There's going to be specifically a bigger tranche that'll open up on the first Friday in March as well. So yeah, we try to spread it out. We're the 21st of January to the 21st of March, so we like to kind of space it out a little bit.
How much do people love this? How much does it boost mood in our dark, cold, wintry days here?
A lot. I mean, the first year people didn't really quite know what's happening. It takes a little while to get that sort of critical mass. But last year we definitely heard a lot more, and this year we've had people asking lots of questions about when it's happening and what are the artworks and things. So yeah, it's growing into something that people are really looking forward to all the time.
Obviously, I want you to describe some of the things. You can match the pictures or not, but Kevin actually, while we're talking on YouTube,
Sure.
is rolling some of the images for us. So
that's a classic past favorite there. That one's not coming back. There's a projection piece that was the first year.
Got it. Are a lot of them projections on buildings?
There's usually between 3 and 5 that are projections. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of 3 different clusters of art. There's the projection art pieces that our friends at Manufacturing Entertainment help us to curate. Then there's artworks that are installed in storefront windows, and that's our friends at ArtSpace that help us to curate. And then we've got our lanterns and light boxes that were commissioned by the Winnipeg Arts Council on our behalf.
Kevin, you can just keep on rolling through as we talk here. So the lanterns and light boxes, I know there's one that's going to be coming up here because I just saw it.
Yeah.
How large are they? And those are some of my favorites because they look really intricate. They're really pretty.
Yeah. So the lanterns are I'm really bad with sizes. I don't know.
Okay.
They're like 2 feet by 2 feet,
Yeah.
and those are installed on the walls of some buildings, so they kind of hang out like old style lanterns.
Yeah.
And then there's 3 larger light boxes, so they're the same format, but they're much bigger. They're a couple meters. So there's one on top of the building at Bannatyne and Main Street,
Okay.
Where Rosé is, and that is an homage to Anne Marie Bannatyne, who was very prominent. Well, not prominent, but her story is becoming more familiar. Métis leader from before Riel, in fact. Yeah.
So you can obviously learn some of the meaning behind some of the installations as well. You have a favorite that's, I think you said, new this year?
Well, one that I'm excited about this year,
Yeah.
it's I just want to make sure I got the name right. It's Statistical Bouquet number 4.
Okay.
The artist is Lydia Yakanowski. She's from Montreal. She's also an economist. And so what she's done is she's created this visualization. She isn't telling anyone what the numbers are from, but she works in spreadsheets and forecasts and things all day long in her day job. And then she uses all of that statistical analysis to create these sort of a mechanical sort of thing, but she creates these beautiful bouquet collages that are playing off of all of these various formulas.
Beautiful.
And that's going to
complicated.
Yeah. And then you see it, and it's this just really organic, beautiful, lush surreal kind of. It feels very natural. Yeah.
What's the best way to take this in? Like, should people actually map out and go installation to installation, or should they just hit certain streets for sure? Like, how should they plan to take it in?
Yeah, I mean, so we do have them all mapped out. They're on our website. We've also got little handbills around the neighborhood and posters and things. So you could map it out that way. Some people do. If it's a nice night, why not? Other people have been known to, go and have a cocktail or go for dinner and then check out the ones right around there, and then maybe go to another place for dessert or something and then check out the ones around there. So really, it's dependent on your comfort level with the weather and what you're doing that night.
How do you select the works? Like, how does it all come together?
Yeah, so like I said, we've predominantly worked with those three different organizations. So manufacturing, entertainment, art space, and Winnipeg Arts Council. We're not an arts organization. We're a business organization. So we recognize the value in having artist-run organizations select artworks. So that's we've left that process to them.
Got it. The installations, is there ever challenges with them holding up with the cold and snow? I mean, I got asked this week. It was like minus 41 with the wind chill, right? So
I will say that our maintenance crew at the BIZ, they were happy for a little bit of reprieve in the cold last week, so that they could finish putting up the lantern boxes, because that's the challenge. It's not, they hold up fine, but standing on a ladder, dealing with sheet metal and steel is a pretty cool job.
Right? Like no gloves in the world can give you the dexterity you need.
Yeah.
And then you got to touch. I can feel the sting. Anyone who's been out the last couple of days without gloves. There's also some that are just really simple but beautiful. Like some of my favorite things in this are just when you have like arched alleyways that just happen to have little string lights hanging all over. There's just something about light.
Yeah, it's true. And art spaces they always have a different temporary one. I just want to make sure I've got this right. So that's one of the ones that's going to be launching on the first Friday in March. And that one's going to be, this year it's Cedar Tunnel, which is a soundscape by Mamie Griffith, along with some sort of natural scent type work. So
why is it important to have this event? And we kind of alluded to this, but why is it important in your view, to have this event in the winter?
Well, we saw this as an opportunity, when actually it was Eric from Artspace and myself who first started talking about this 4 years ago. And we saw this as an opportunity not only to bring some life and some art into the darkest time of the year, but also, the Exchange District is well known for its heritage buildings, its historical architecture, and in the summer we do a lot with our historic walking tours. And we thought this was a time to let artists kind of produce stuff in that context that talks about different kinds of stories and different kinds of histories that we don't normally get the opportunity to tell in the summer.
Where can people find the map?
On our website, exchangedistrict.org, it'll have the map, it'll have all the artworks and all the descriptions, so you can find them. And if you're wandering around, you will find signage by all of the artwork with a QR code that will take you right to the description of the piece as well.
Thank you so much for coming in early this morning. Drive safely back.
Great. Thank you very much.
Once again, in case you missed that website that David mentioned, David Pensato, it is exchangedistrict.org, so you can check it all out. So lots that you can check out and go out and see in these dark, cold winter nights. Thanks for maybe putting your earbuds in and cuddling up with our podcast today. I'm Marcy Markusa. Don't forget to like and share.